Great. Thank you so much, ladies. So now we have Emira Mears coming up to speak to us about celebrating success. Great.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to be talking about celebrating success, and this is a really great venue for me to be doing that in because I'm in a room full of wildly successful, extremely accomplished, and inspiring people, and women in particular, which is one of my passions. I am going to now do something that takes me a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but it's very on topic. My goal here is to get you all to publicly celebrate your successes more often, more loudly, and with more satisfaction and verve. So now I come to the part that's a little uncomfortable for me. I am a very successful person. Is that? There we go. Okay. So, I do not say that to myself every morning when I wake up in the mirror. I, in fact, say that very rarely, probably not nearly as often as I should, and I'm going to share with you why that is, not just as my own personal growth, but for you as well. So, how did I get successful? Well, lots of hard work, lots of drive, goal, ambition. In fact, as I look back at my career, I'm 37 years old, I think. I always have to figure out how old my sister is and do the math from there. I've actually achieved a really good number of my personal and professional goals, I am pleased to say. Some of what I have achieved, I could actually say, has gone well beyond my wildest dreams. So for those of you who don't know me, just a little bit of information about what I have done. So I run Raised Eyebrow Web Studio. We're a digital agency that works primarily with nonprofit organizations. I've been running the company since for 13 years. So I was 23, 24 when we started it. I've published a book, The Boss of You, which is a guide for women entrepreneurs, came out through a US publisher in 2008. It is, by Canadian standards, a best-selling book, and as a result of it, I've had the real pleasure of being brought to speak at many conferences like this one. I've been able to meet a number of my personal mentors and some of my greatest personal heroes. I'm really lucky to call a lot of them my friends now. I have a house in Vancouver, which, you know, was something when I was 23 and starting the business I never thought would happen, and that was before things got really dumb. So there we go. That's how I'm qualified to call myself a successful person, and my biggest fear in standing up here and telling you that, of course, is that you're all going to think that I'm a total blowhard, that I'm really full of myself, and that, you know, maybe I am just a little overly fond of myself, and that maybe I don't quite measure up to some of the other successful people that you know, or I'm not quite as successful as them. And that's my fear, and that honestly is one of the things that stands in the way of me doing that more often. So why does that matter? I'm going to give you some numbers as to why that matters in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit more about success and about being an achiever, which I think everyone in this room, I can make the grand assumption, is someone who would describe themselves as an achiever. So at my core, I'm really all about success. I always have been. I am, as I say, an achiever. Some people would say an overachiever. I don't like that word. Or that phrase, I kind of feel like it's a bit redundant. It's like saying very unique. It's either unique or it isn't. You're either an achiever or you're not. So my family likes to tell this story about how when I was 4 years old, they started talking to me about stopping sucking my thumb. I needed to stop sucking my thumb. I guess they talked to me about it for about 2 days. And then I came to my mom and my dad and I said, okay guys, it's good, I've got a plan. And I actually had a 6-step plan outlined as to how I was going to stop sucking my thumb. I asked them to support me in it, and within a week, I stopped sucking my thumb. From there, we went on to, I wanted to go to a private school in town. I couldn't go, my parents couldn't afford to send me, so I had to write entrance exams, get a full scholarship. I managed that, maintained my grade point average so I could stay there, got scholarships so I could go to the university I wanted to, started a business when I was 23, on and on. I have always known that if I work really hard, most of my goals are things that I can achieve. The crazy thing about that, though, is that while I have been successful, and when I look back at all those things and when I read my bio, sometimes it even surprises me, not a lot of it felt like success. Don't get me wrong, when I don't achieve something that I set out to do, that feels like failure. Really big failure, and that's something that I actually need to get more comfortable with, but that's a whole other talk. When I achieve the things that I set out to do, however, it really often doesn't feel like success. As an achiever, what it feels like is an accomplishment. I got that done, now I take it off, I move on to the next thing. In fact, I probably have several horses in the race, so I could be really tired because I just achieved that one thing and I've got some other stuff to do. Or I achieve something like signing a huge contract for my firm, and the next thing that I need to do is make that stuff happen. So I go right to the executables. What are the things that I need to do? Okay, great, I reached that level, what next? I almost never stop to acknowledge the success. In fact, one could say I never do. When I wrote my book, The Boss of You, which I co-authored with my former business partner, Lauren Bacon, she and I actually used to joke about this. And we wrote a chapter about celebrating success. And we were terrible at celebrating our own successes. We had an ongoing joke about it. We worked with coaches who tried to help us with it. At one point, we came up with this really elaborate system whereby every time we had a goal, we're real tea freaks. We would be like, okay, when we reach that goal, these were in our startup days, things were lean, so tea was, a celebration for us. We're like, we're gonna get that tea and we're gonna name it after that success, and then we're gonna be forced to celebrate that success every time we make a pot of tea. And that's gonna be our thing, and it's gonna be our touchstone and our exercise to get better at it. And that was really dorky, and it worked for a while, but ultimately it never really got us to the next level because it really wasn't very public. It was very internal. It was just between the two of us. It wasn't really taking it up a level. So, sorry, I have a 3-year-old, so she twisted her ankle yesterday and it took me a little off. So we never really got further with it. We never really got very good at doing it publicly. And why did that matter? Well, I used to write this article or a column for BC Business magazine online about women in business. And about a year ago, I was researching a new column and reading an article from the Catalyst Institute. If any of you know that organization, great organization based on the East Coast, who look into issues around women and leadership and entrepreneurship. And it was actually not the article that I was reading, it was another one that I just happened upon when I was on their website that was called The Myth of the Ideal Worker. Does doing all the right things really get women ahead? So the article was about all of this sort of quasi perfect business advice that we all get given as entrepreneurs or as career women around, here's what you do to get ahead. So you meet people, you ask for more rewarding jobs, you ask for more challenging jobs, you ask for a raise, you do all these different things, and those are the sort of the common wisdom of what's going to get you up the success ladder. And what they looked at was whether or not those things actually worked for women, because we know that women are still lagging behind in numbers in terms of success, pay, all of that stuff. So specifically what they looked at were when women and men seek out or do the following things: actively seek high-profile assignments, rub shoulders with other influential leaders, communicate openly and directly about their career aspirations, seek visibility for accomplishments, let a supervisor know of your skills and willingness to contribute, continually seek out new opportunities, and not be afraid to ask for help. So those are things that I think we all know, conventional wisdom, those are things you should be doing with your career. According to the study that they did, when women and men did those things, they had a significantly positive impact for men. For women, they actually had 0 or negative impact in some cases, some of those attributes, which is shocking. Specifically, what they found was that the ideal worker behavior got men ahead and in many cases put women behind. So I was reading this and I was like, well, that just sucks, because we all get told we should do that all the time, and if it's holding us back, where do we go from there? And then came the real gem for me. There was one exception, according to this study, and I'm going to quote it here. When women were most proactive in making their achievements highly visible, they were advanced further, were more satisfied with their careers, and had greater compensation growth, so greater money, than women who were less focused on calling attention to their successes. And the awesome part of that was that that same behavior actually didn't have the same kind of impact for men. It had a disproportionately large impact for women. So when I read that, I got all tingly. I was like, okay, my biggest challenge that I know that I have has actually been standing in my way. And here's a study that's telling me that that is actually true. Now, I was originally doing a microbiology degree. I have a background in science. I know that one study does not proven theory make. But as I say, I got all tingly. I thought, this is it. This is true. I have lived this. I know this to be true. There is wisdom here. And how do I know? Well, I've managed to enjoy a lot of success along the way, but I actually feel very strongly that that success has been hampered, or that I could have got further or perhaps more easily if I had been more comfortable with tooting my own horn and being more public about my achievements. I am confident about that. I'm confident because I see some of my colleagues having a seat at the table or enjoying paths to success that I have not myself had access to, and I know it's because I've been holding myself back. That's not to say that I feel hard done by. Don't get me wrong. I do feel very proud and happy of my career, but I know that if I could conquer this piece of it, that I would reap more rewards. And it makes sense. People like a winner. Everybody likes a winner. So why am I talking to you about this personal challenge that I have here? I'm talking to you because the other thing that that study and many other studies have shown is that we as women are terrible at this. Even when we think we're good at it, we're terrible at it. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. About a year ago, across my Facebook feed, comes notice that a very, very, very dear friend of mine, a woman who wrote the book Cunt, Inga Muscio, amazing seminal text, her book had just been named the #2 most important feminist book of all time by Ms. Magazine, arguably the kind of people who would know what makes a good feminist book. So I know that Inga doesn't always check in on her email or Facebook, or she screens her calls. So I thought, I'm going to call her tonight and make sure she knows about this because, damn it, this is awesome. So I call her, and she hadn't heard about it. And I told her, I was like, dude, your book just got named the #2 most important feminist book of all time. There she is on the other end of her phone in Seattle. And she's like, oh, huh, that's kind of neat. And I was like, no, that is not neat. That's amazing. This is awesome. She was like, yeah. But you know, when I first wrote that book, and this is going back like 15 years, they didn't review it in Ms. Magazine, so I don't know if they like it. And I was like, what? When they, number two, the first one was like the Feminine Mystique or something. It was like a seminal text on feminism. But this is a common thing that we do. And I actually had a conversation with another women entrepreneur recently who's a real leader in her industry, who was talking to me about when she mentors women and she finds that women really hang on to their mistakes or the things that didn't go well, and they let them stand in the way of celebrating successes when they're experiencing them. And I know I've done that, and I see a lot of my female colleagues doing that, including Inga in this instance. Another thing that we're really, really good at doing, and it comes from one of our strengths around community building, around sharing, around building conversations, is one of the things when it happens around success is we're really, really good at deflecting. So there was another study that came out recently. It's a Harvard business study that looked at whenever you have groups of people collaborating, if you have just one woman in a group, the collective intelligence of that group is skyrockets above other groups that don't have any women in them. And the reason that this study thought that that was happening is because women are particularly good at getting things out of multiple people and about sharing information and about getting people to play to their strengths, all that stuff. And when we get congratulated for having done a job particularly well done, or doing a job particularly well, we deflect. The first thing so many of us do is say, thanks, you know, if I hadn't had my mother there to take care of my kids while I was doing that crazy thing, or if I didn't have a totally amazing COO who could have helped me with that, or if I hadn't been connected, you hadn't given me that connection to that other person, this thing never would have happened. It's not to say that's not important to do. We need to do that. I think it's a real strength. It's great that we want to acknowledge how other people have helped to get us somewhere. It needs to not be the first thing that comes out of our mouths. It needs to not be the only thing that comes out of our mouths. We need to bask a little in our successes and own them, not just deflect them. So, what do I want you to do? Because I know that this is going to help you take your career further, higher, and to greater places so that you can do more of the good that you want to do. First thing you need to do, and this is actually the thesis of my book, The Boss of You in some ways, which is not a plug, but just for those of you who've read it, I'm not repeating myself, you need to know what success looks like. You need to know what it looks like. You maybe need to write it down. You may even need to go so far as putting it on your fridge. Because when you get there, we're humans are adaptable, and we're so busy. And you'll get to your success, and like I said before, you'll just get on to the next thing. Or you'll forget that that was the thing that you wanted so badly when you set out to start doing something. And you'll just be on to the next piece of it. Or it will become normal. Or you'll get the news that you just signed that $100,000 deal on your way out the door to daycare. And you won't have time to do anything about it. And the next day you'll be too busy getting to the to-do list. And you'll forget to stop and celebrate the fact that you achieved that thing that you wanted so badly when you set out to do it. So you need to know what success looks like. The other thing you need to do is think about what success is going to feel like. One of my colleagues, and a woman I greatly admire, Danielle Laporte, who many of you probably know, talks about not just focusing on tangible goals, but on like feeling goals. So what's it going to feel like when I get to the other side of that? And make sure that when you get there, you check in with yourself and say, yeah, this feels really good. This feels exactly the way I wanted it to. After you've written it down, you need to practice. And one of the awesome things about this day and age of social media is that practicing and taking tiny, tiny steps to celebrating success publicly is super easy. It's right here. When I started my business 13 years ago, you had to write a press release if you did something. We don't need to do that anymore. So tell your story, talk about your successes. And if you need to, it's super dorky, but as I've already made clear, I can be super dorky. Put a spot in your calendar where once a month, once a week, however often it is you need to do it, you sit and think to yourself, what are some of the things I've achieved recently? And are any of those things worth sharing? Because otherwise you will forget about it in your busy day-to-day life. And then the final thing that you can do, that we can all do, is we can help each other. So when someone else does something amazing, shout them out. Let them know that you noticed. Let them know that what they did was fantastic, and make sure that everyone in their network knows about it too. And when you hear other women celebrating their success, and you congratulate them, and the first thing they say is, oh yeah, but I couldn't have done it for X, Y, Z, say, no, it's just awesome that you did that. Or yes, I know that that's true, but it's amazing that you did that. Let's help each other get better at this and at claiming and owning our successes in really public ways so that we can help advance each other and get ahead and be the leaders that we all can be. That is that. And I am super excited to say that in honor of celebrating success, we are going to do one of my favorite things in the whole world right now, which is drink Prosecco. Upstairs? Okay, so thank you to you guys for bringing bubbly.